Hi, I'm Tony. Welcome to Sew Lounge. Today I'm going to show you how to sew up an A-line dress. We're going to go step by step through the pattern instructions, and I'm going to show you how to do each one. If you haven't watched the other videos, I am working with Butterick 4498, which is an out-of-print pattern from the 90s. If you would like to sew a similar pattern, the one that's currently in print is Butterick 6653. Before I get started, I need to make sure that I have all the notions for my garment, which are a 24-inch invisible zipper and a pack of 1/2 inch bias tape single fold. I'm going to use the bias tape to finish the neckline and the armholes of my dress. And the zipper is going to go in the center back seam. Next, I need my instructions. Now the instructions are printed on the back of the pattern layout and cutting layout. So flip them over, and that's where you'll find your instructions with the step-by-step of how to put together your garment. To get started are the darts. So the very first thing you do, in pretty much anything you're going to construct, if it's women's wear, are sewing in the darts. If it's a blouse, you sew in the darts first. If it's a skirt, you sew in the darts first. If it's a dress, you sew in the darts first. It's just the first step, pretty much, of any kind of construction. So I have sewn in the darts of my dress, and if you want to see how to do that, go head over to the darts video and watch it, and then come back here. So I've got my darts all sewn in. And the next step, according to the instructions, is to sew in the zipper. Now the instructions say to sew from the dot that we marked on our pattern to the end of the hem to put in the bottom part of the center back seam. But I'm putting in an invisible zipper, so I don't want to do that. Sewing in the bottom half of that center seam before I put in my invisible zipper is going to make it a lot more complicated, and it's going to be harder to sew and get that zipper in where it needs to be. So I'm going to sew in the invisible zipper first, and then after I finish my zipper, I'm going to finish out the bottom of the center back seam. This is just reversing the construction steps, because if you look at the instructions, they say to sew the bottom seam first, and then you go back and put in a regular zipper. As you know, I hate regular zippers. They take a lot more work, they take a lot more steps, and they never look as good as an invisible zipper. So we're going to reverse those construction steps, and we're going to put the zipper in first, and then I'm going to finish the bottom of the seam. If you don't know how to put in an invisible zipper, be sure to watch the video that I did of just invisible zippers, but we're going to head to the machine and I'm going to show you how to put it into a garment. Before I start sewing, I have already pressed in my 5/8 inch seam allowance, and I've matched my invisible zipper up to it and pinned it in place. So if you haven't watched the invisible zipper tutorial, go watch it now. It takes you through step by step everything you need to do to get your seam allowance and your zipper in the right place for the sewing process. Let's go in for a closer look. I'm at my sewing machine, and the zipper is pinned to the 5/8 inch seam that we pressed in. So we've got that hard little line under there, and I have my invisible zipper foot on. I'm going to line up the little notch there with the side of my zipper, which I have pressed. So like I said, if you don't know these steps, go through and watch the other video, because it takes you through every single step you need to get to this point. But to make this video a little bit faster, we are not going through all the details. So start sewing, and you can back stitch a couple stitches to just hold that top of that zipper in place, and then we're just going to sew down the zipper, and we're going to take out each pin as we get to it. So just make sure you keep your zipper lined up on that pressed mark. And this is a very long zipper, so I have pinned it a lot more than I did in the tutorial because we need to keep it in place. And there is also a slight curve to the center back seam, which we need to follow with the zipper. So if you do have a curve, you can press it in as best as you can using either the Dritz Easy Hem or your hem gauge, and just go back through and use your hem gauge to make sure that the seam is the right distance from the edge of the zipper coil to the fabric. So we want that to be 5/8 because that's where we're stitching, and then that's going to roll into the seam allowance. And as I'm sewing, I'm just kind of rolling the rest of the pattern piece over onto itself. And this is the center back, the right side of the center back that we are sewing the right side of the invisible zipper to. I'm going to take that pin out and keep going. And we're still removing the pins. We're still going. It's a very long zipper. This takes a long time. But we're just going to show you this one side, and then I will cut back in when we finish the bottom so you can see how it works with the construction steps. Almost there, down to the very, very bottom of the zipper with my fabric. Last pin. And the very edge, and as I have said before, just try and get as close as you can. It gets a little hard with that tab there, and then you want to backstitch just a couple of stitches to hold it in place. Now go sew the left side, and we'll come back for the center back. I have sewn in the other side of my zipper, and I have changed my zipper foot, so it is a regular zipper foot, and that's what I'm going to use to finish out this seam. And I have pinned my seam together. So I matched the seam down to the bottom, which doesn't totally match up, but I'm not going to stress about that right now. We are going to go to the seam, and you want the right side of the zipper and the right seam allowance, as well as the left side of the zipper and the left seam allowance. You want all of that to go under the zipper foot. And then we are going to, let me take that under this way, there we go. We're going to lower the zipper foot, and we're putting it a little bit back from where we stopped stitching. So we want to go a little bit further up the stitch line because we're going to overlap a little tiny bit. Now, make sure that you've moved your needle over to the far right side, because otherwise it will hit your zipper foot and make a notch and break your needle. And as you can see, I've done that before. No worries. Roll your needle down into the fabric to start, because it's just an easier way to start. And then we're going to stitch a couple of stitches and then back stitch. And then we're going to press that reverse button, go back, and then we're going to go forward again. Now, when we moved our needle, we're lining it up with the edge of the zipper foot, so that's where it's stitching, but then it's also the same spot that we're lining up this press line that we made earlier when we pressed our fabric to get the 5/8 line in. So that's the line we're sewing along, which is the 5/8 line, and our needle's moved over so everything is matching up. And you just want to continue down that line. And this is the reason we press it in, because it makes it easier to follow. If we were following over here, it's kind of not exactly in the same place for it to follow a gauge. I guess if you pull it, then it would be, but we don't need to pull the fabric right now. Not when we have this handy pressed line to follow. So just keep following that line. And then if you want, at this point, you can switch it over to the regular presser foot. I'm not going to, because it's just more of a hassle and I've got the needle where I want it. So I'm just going to keep sewing down that line. instructions as I come to them. And last pin. And we're just going to finish out. You can see it's a little bit uneven at the bottom. We're not going to stress about that because we can fix that once we hem the dress, but we are not going to backstitch because we are hemming it. This bottom part of the seam will get caught up in the hem, so we don't have to stress about it. So just finish it out and then raise your needle, raise your presser foot, cut off those tails, and now we've gotten the bottom of the zipper finished out. After I finish sewing the bottom seam of the center back, then I take it over to the iron and I press the whole thing out. So I press the seam open at the bottom, and then I reverse it to the right side and I press the top part of the zipper. If you press during the sewing process, your garment is going to have a much more finished look and it's not going to look so handmade. So it's just a good habit to get into. As you're working through each step in each process, then press each item as you go through it and don't wait until the end to press everything. So earlier we talked about the darts and we pressed the darts open after we sewed them. Now that we've done the center back seam, we're going to press that open and it's ready to go. The next step, according to the pattern instructions, is to sew together the shoulder seams and the side seams before we put in the bias tape around the neckline and armholes. But we're going to save that for another video. Stay tuned for sewing it all together, part 2, inserting bias tape into your neckline and armholes, and then we're going to finish all the side seams. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to click like below and subscribe to my channel so you never miss a stitch. If you've got questions, but no one to answer them, head on over to Let's Talk Sewing for Beginners, hosted by Sew Lounge. It's an interactive Facebook group where you can ask all the questions you want, and I will do my very best to get you some answers. I go live in the group on Wednesday, so check the events tab for the schedule. Until we meet again, happy sewing!